Hi folks. As promised, I wanted to give you all a look at the Famicom games I got in my latest order from Japan. I got a lot of duds in the package, but a few diamonds in the rough too. I'll go over each of the cartridges that I found to be really special, and give a little background as to why these games are so important and so interesting to have. The first game we're showcasing today is King's Knight by Square. This is one of Square's earliest games for the Famicom, and it has been recently remade, such as it is, as part of the Final Fantasy XV Side Games collection. While it's nothing terribly exciting in and of itself, it's an interesting piece of RPG history. The next three games are from the Kunio-kun series, also known as Downtown Nekketsu. Possibly its best known installment is this one, Downtown Nekketsu Monogatari. When Technos released it in North America, they named it, you guessed it, River City Ransom. This classic game influenced media for decades to come, either as a set of sly references in the Scott Pilgrim franchise, or as full-on love letters to the series, such as Way Forward's River City Girls. While the English-speaking world got some of the rest of the series in various forms, I'm going to focus here on two that didn't make it across the Pacific in any way. The first is Nekketsu Kakuto Densetsu, or Nekketsu Fighting Legend. It's a rather standard fighting game in the Kunio-kun style, with an interesting four-player focus. The hardware limitations of the Famicom make it a real chore to play through, though. The other one is Downtown Special, Kunio-kun's Jidai Geki, or literally translated, period drama. This is, well, it's River City Ransom if it were an old samurai movie. It boasts a handful of technical improvements over RCR, but it's still basically the same game. Next, we have a game that's more notable for what it led to than what it actually is. Raid on Bungaling Bay was one of Will Wright's first games for Broderbund Software, and Hudson Soft had the license for it in Japan. While the game itself is nothing to write home about, being a helicopter bombing mission, it's most notable for being the inspiration for SimCity. And, funnily enough, SimCity was originally going to be an NES release, before it became a launch title for the Super NES. Now we're getting into the games that are a little bit more interesting in and of themselves. Dragon Ball Z Attack of the Saiyans is the first DBZ game for the Famicom, and rather than being a beat-em-up like Kunio-kun, it's a weird hybrid of a board game and card battler. It appears to follow the first arc of DBZ, starting with Raditz' arrival on Earth searching for Kakarot, better known as Son Goku. If you have a good grasp of Japanese, this might be worth looking into. Speaking of Dragon Ball, another surprise in the set was Famicom Jump, Heroes History. This was a 20th anniversary celebration game that crossed over all of the then-current Jump properties, including Dragon Ball, Dr. Slump, Fist of the North Star, Kinnikuman, and more. It's a rather interesting take on an action RPG, but again, without a strong knowledge of Japanese, this may be a little too out there. One game that demands a strong command of the language is this one, Nobunaga's Ambition Busho Fuunroku, the 4th edition of the Venerable Strategy series. Interestingly, this one never made it to the US as an NES title, but rather as a Super NES offering, stripped of the Nobunaga name and just called Lord of Darkness. It's basically what you expect from an early Koei Ko Shibusawa game. Lots of text, lots of strategy, and a challenge worthy of Lord Oda himself. Finally, we're getting into the real big prizes. Let's start with this. A complete in-box copy of Dragon Quest. This is the one that started it all, folks, and it is amazing to have it in my hands. As games go, however, this one is extremely primitive. For North American fans of the series, this almost plays like a rather rushed beta of the title, with less advanced graphics, obstructed menu choices, and most notably, no battery save feature. This bad boy uses passwords. The North American version is a dramatic upgrade, though if you're looking to play the game nowadays, do yourself a favor and get the Switch remake. But that's not the only boxed biggie in this set. Dragon Quest II also showed up dressed to the nines, and, like its predecessor, the packaging masks a game that's less polished than its localization would be. Granted, it's still a classic title, and one of the landmark games of the NES role-playing catalog, but again, it kind of feels like the Japanese players got the short end of the stick on this one. For one thing, we got a nicer title screen, a cinematic and informative prologue that eases players into the story, and, oh yeah, saving again. Our last title is a real treat, no matter which side of the Pacific you're on. Dragon Quest IV was one I was not expecting to get in this set, and as the capstone of the NES era of the series, it's a game that almost literally speaks for itself. Fortunately for everyone involved, there's a lot more parity between the Japanese and North American releases, though if I could quibble just a little bit, just look at that title screen effect! The NES wasn't built for scaling like that, and instead we get a crummy wipe transition? So not fair. Well folks, that's what we have in this set of Famicom titles. I have a lot more content coming up over on my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/CodeIndigo, including the beginning of a new retro game, Lufia 2 Rise of the Sinistrals. I watched a tournament of players going through the roguelike ancient cave, and I decided that I absolutely had to learn this game. Now, that's a little ways off, as I'm currently awaiting my FX Pack Pro to arrive so that I can play it on original hardware. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all real soon.